Hi, my name is Johnny Bellingham,
And I'm Nathan Butler.
and today we are going to be presenting on the national economic system of the Kingdom of Norway. So, to start things off, I want to give a little bit of a background about the Kingdom of Norway. So, Norway is a Nordic country in Northern Europe that is bordered by Sweden, Finland, Russia, and then Denmark on the other side of the strait. And Norway has existed for over 1,000 years, being established first in 872 by merging together a bunch of smaller petty kingdoms. And initially, Norway was a part of the Kingdom of Denmark in Norway between 1537 and 1814. Then in 1814, they began a personal union with Sweden, all the way until 1905, when Norway finally declared its own independence. So Norway is a relatively small country made up of around a population of 5.3 million and is around 150,000 square miles. Norway has two levels of administrative and political subdivisions. So their country includes 18 counties throughout the country that are further divided into 422 municipalities. Now, Norway is a unitary sovereign state with a constitutional monarchy, and they divide state power between the parliament, the cabinet, and their Supreme Court. And Norway's values are deeply rooted in egalitarian ideals and values. And with this, they use the Nordic welfare model with universal health care and a comprehensive social security system. Norway has abundant access to key industrial sectors, which include vast reserves of petroleum, natural gas, minerals, lumber, seafood, and freshwater, with a very extensive coastline facing the North Atlantic Ocean and Barents Sea. Outside of the Middle East, on a per capita basis, Norway is the world's largest producer of oil and natural gas. And then finally, on the World Bank and International Monetary Fund lists, Norway has the fourth largest per capita income in the world. And Norway also ranks first on the World Happiness Report for 2017 and currently ranks first on the OECD Better Life Index, the Index of Public Integrity and Democracy Index. And Norway hosts one of the lowest crime rates in the world.
So, moving on to Norway's economic system. So it's kind of interesting the way they have it currently set up. It follows, like Johnny was saying, the Nordic model, which is just a general kind of philosophy of egalitarian social structures, and redistribution of income. And so they essentially have a mixed economy. So there are kind of like three levels. So there are some industries that the government is heavily involved in, such as petroleum, telecommunications, and commercial banking. And then there are some industries kind of in the second level that the government just subsidizes heavily without actually owning very much of. And so these are like agriculture and fishing. And then there are some industries that are almost completely privatized, like small to medium scale manufacturing and shipping. And so some interesting facts are they have moved from almost entirely public control of the oil sector, the petroleum producing sector, to some of it is privatized now, although the government still has that heavy hand involved. There are company Statoil is one of the huge oil companies, and the state owns 67% of it. And so obviously they have a huge hand in the decision making that's going on in that company. And partially, we were thinking that this is probably because of the huge natural resources of oil that Norway has. Maybe the government kind of felt like that was such a huge industry that they couldn't necessarily be very hands off and let the private sector take control of it, just because that's such a huge part of kind of Norway's just economic system in general is just the petroleum industry and the natural resources. It's just a huge thing that they rely on. So that's kind of Norway's general economic system right now, the way that's set up, just a big picture kind of overview. And so we wanted to drill down a little bit into one aspect of the economic system that we found particularly interesting, which is the universal health care that Norway offers to all of its residents. So we thought this was particularly interesting, also just because of the political climate in the U.S. now. This is something that people are talking a lot about, and lots of people will cite Norway as an example of a successful universal healthcare country that has implemented universal healthcare. And so a few things to note. First of all, one of the reasons, besides the kind of political ideology, that Norway has this universal healthcare system is just due to the geography of the country. It's very spread out. And so the publicly funded system allows Norway to offer, the same amount, the same quality, the same amount, the same different cares to people in the southern urban areas, as well as in the more rural, more thinly populated northern areas. And so this is obviously a huge concern for the country, that they didn't want, people in the north to be getting worse healthcare. And so that's part of the reason. Another thing is that Norway has a population of about 4.4 million, which is approximately the population of Washington, D.C. And so that kind of makes something like a universal healthcare system just easier to kind of get a grip on, versus when you're dealing with, a huge population like the U.S. And Norway is also a very healthy country, just in general, based on the statistics that we saw. So basically, the way that they have their healthcare system structured is Parliament sets up this Ministry of Healthcare, and then the Ministry of Healthcare has a bunch of different branches. But while it's essentially a centrally planned system, they do delegate a lot of the authority to the counties and municipalities that Johnny was talking about earlier. And so what they'll do is give block grants to the counties, to the smaller local governmental systems, to who can be a little bit more hands-on with the quality of healthcare that they're giving in their particular areas. And so this just allows it is centrally planned, but they do a good job of kind of dissolving the power and letting the people that are closest to the healthcare make the particular decisions that need to be made for that area. And so the way this is funded is through a progressive income tax. And so basically, if you're a resident in Norway, you pay 7.8% of your gross income to the National Insurance Scheme, is what they call it. And this is kind of a bank that people can pull from when they get in trouble. And also, there's a huge list of specific ways that this money can be used and what it will fully cover and partially cover. But basically, that's kind of the pool of money that people pay into, and then when you're in trouble, that's the money that you pull from in order to pay for your healthcare. So that's kind of a big picture economic system. So
yeah, and then finally, to conclude, we want to take a look at the recent economic performance of Norway and what is happening with them right now. So using research from the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, which is the OECD, what we see going on with Norway right now is mainland output growth has been growing, but will moderate over the next couple of years. And we see that this moderation is reflected through a decline in the income and activity boost from recent oil price increases. It comes from the weak housing construction activity and tightening capacity constraints that is happening in the wider economy, along with a decline in the working age population growth. So also what we see is the GDP of Norway is increasing at approximately 2% rate each year, and the consumer price inflation and wage growth is gradually increasing as the unemployment rate is falling. Now for Norway, in their 2019 budget proposals, they also have included various measures to support more labor market participation. And then, as I mentioned earlier, Norway is experiencing a weaker housing market where the stock of unsold houses is quite high and these properties are taking longer to sell. So that has really resulted in housing construction activity to contract and the overall housing market to cool. So these factors that we all see going on are influenced directly from the economic structure and setup of the country of Norway. And just to conclude our presentation, we just see that with this smaller country size, the smaller population compared to countries like the US or China, because of that, Norway is able to be far more involved with their comprehensive social security setups, with the universal healthcare system and the Nordic welfare system. They're able to really be involved with their citizens there. So we hope that you've enjoyed this presentation and have a better understanding of Norway's economic system. Thank you very much.
Oops.